Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kenyatta Johnson. I am the council person for the 2nd Councilmatic District. My district goes from City Hall to the Navy Yard to the airport. I represent more than 15 diverse neighborhoods in the 2nd Councilmatic District, including 1801 Spruce Street, which is behind us with the store known as Starbucks. Today I'm here with my colleagues in City Council and other stakeholders to denounce the actions of Starbucks on April the 12th, where 2 African-American young men were ejected from this particular establishment while they were waiting while being black. As an African-American young man growing up here in South Philadelphia, all my life I have 2 young men and 2 children, one 3-year-old and one 1-year-old African-American babies who will grow up in this city. And this particular issue significantly had an impact on me because I want them to grow up in a city where they do not have to deal with any type of form of racism, any type of form of bias, and they should have the freedom to go to and from any establishment without being harassed. Now, some will say, well, you know, in this particular case, these young men were sitting in the establishment for a significant period of time, but according to popular belief, anyone knows Starbucks brand is based upon individuals coming inside their establishment, using Wi-Fi, having meetings, and taking a moment to enjoy themselves within this establishment. So why these 2 young men were singled out, I have no idea, but I'm standing here with my colleagues to let you know that we will significantly stay on this case. Now, recently, a few minutes ago, to be quite frank, I met with the CEO of Starbucks, with the mayor and some of his staff, and you know, to me, it was all lip service. I'm not sold. You know, I dealt with different corporations, being the council person in the 2nd Councilmatic District, and I'm going to wait and see that the changes that they're talking about putting in place, I know they told Channel 6 that they're going to do unbiased training for their staff members, and they talked about how they want to apologize to some of the young men, to 2 of the young men who were traumatized as a result of this event. But we want to see action. We want to see an actual plan to make sure that those individuals that come to and from Starbucks, not only here on 18th and Spruce Street, but all throughout the city of Philadelphia, are respected and they can go to the establishment without fear of being targeted because of their skin color. This is the year 2018. And when I was sitting home talking to some of my family members, and particularly my niece, she began to talk about how the Jim Crow era is going on right now here in the city of Philadelphia. I'm of the firm belief if these particular 2 young men didn't have sweatsuits on, they wouldn't have been targeted. The manager would have made a better decision on how she decided to address the situation. The situation would not have escalated to the level of the 2 young men being arrested. And so as part of the things that we will be demanding of Starbucks moving forward, obviously, we want to make sure that they engage in diversity and inclusion training and sensitivity training for all their workers. We want to also make sure that in moving forward, they need to let the people of the city of Philadelphia and also the nation know that they care about all human beings, African Americans, people of color, and anyone who frequents their particular facility. But in this particular case, there were 2 young men who were traumatized, or who were singled out, or who were targeted. And so I asked some stakeholders to join me today to express their interest, their concern on this issue. And so I'm going to ask for Mr. Michael Banks from the African American Chamber of Commerce to please come on up.
Good afternoon, everyone. I would definitely like to thank the councilman for sending this opportunity. And this is a very unfortunate event that I have to stand behind the podium today. As the president and CEO of the African American Chamber of Commerce for PA, New Jersey, and Delaware, is really important. And this event speaks to the importance of ownership and equity in the African American community. We have to be smarter as an African American community where we're investing our dollars, because if an establishment does not want our presence, they should not want our dollars. And we have to become more selective of who we choose to do business with, because as the councilman stated, a sweatsuit should not be a determinant factor for who gets to sit inside of an establishment. And the fact that we're still addressing that issue here in April 2018, this speaks to how much work that we have to get done in this city and across the country. So, Councilman, thank you for this time, and I look forward also to hearing what the actionable items that come out of this initiative. Thank you.
Next, I'm going to have to come up Ms. Linda Custis from the Urban League of Philadelphia. She's the president.
Hello. My name is Andrea Custis, and I'm the president and CEO of the Urban League, which is a 100-year-old civil rights organization. So a couple of things. Number one, I do want to say that Mayor Kinney certainly described the situation correctly when he said this is what racial profiling and racial discrimination looks like in 2018. Two other things. I'm real proud to have Commissioner Ross as our police commissioner, but we missed an opportunity that day. And here's what we missed. We missed an opportunity to use common sense, to make a judgment, and to use the skills and the training to de-escalate a situation before it went out of control. My other piece is very similar to you, Councilman Kenyatta, and that is that Starbucks should want to have people who are employed who represent their values. I'm going to assume that they value Black people, African American people. So I would encourage them to relook, review all of their policies and procedures and make sure that their folks are trained properly. And I do believe that you can make a difference with unconscious bias training. Thank you, Councilman, for letting me say a few words. And I can tell you the Urban League is committed to helping Starbucks to make sure that every individual is safe and welcomed in their stores. And we intend to do that. And that means everybody is well respected in their stores. Thank you.
See, the other unfortunate aspect about this particular issue that brings up a very serious issue that we address, that we have to deal with in our society around the issue of racism and racial profiling. I believe our city currently right now has a black eye as a result of this particular issue. I believe our city at this particular time right now has a stain on it. And we've been doing some great things as we move forward, but I believe this has set us back. But it also gives us an opportunity to engage in a real dialogue and a real conversation, but most important, a real plan of action as a city as we address this particular issue. It's going to come out also, one of the things that was talked about in our meeting was with Lou Andrew from the Human Relations Commission. Well, part of the investigation is going to turn up that this may have been one of the problem stores, problem managers in the past. And if that's the case, it's totally unacceptable and should have been dealt with prior to us even arriving to this particular time. And so at this time, I'm going to ask for my good friend who I've been working on a variety of different issues, particularly around activism, and we're addressing some issues around American Airlines right now, Mr. Rodney Muhammad from the NAACP, to please come to the microphone.
All right. Peace and blessings. Thank you, Councilman Kenyatta Johnson, for this opportunity. The NAACP is in its 109th year of struggle in this country. In that 109 years of struggle, there's a trail of blood. That blood has come from a call from white women when they are distressed about black men that seem intimidating. It always brings a brigade, whether it's the Ku Klux Klan, whether it was the mobs. We have a history that can be extracted from newspapers all over this country, 100 years of lynchings. So with slavery, segregation, and Jim Crow, we were supposed to be out of that kind of era in 2018. But this kind of incident shows that that same model exists in Western civilization. And we got a lot of work in front of us. The NAACP has issued a press statement. We are very troubled by this. We always investigate things before we come out public, and what we have found so far in our investigation is very troubling. 2 men who were not allowed, 2 men who were not being in any way threatening to any of the patrons that were in this business establishment, were asked to leave when they were waiting for a business contact to come. We can't find any reason for them to be approached like this except for the color of their skin. That's very troubling, and it represents a tale of 2 cities. We're 50 years away from the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King, where the Kerner Commission was convened by President Johnson, and a summary conclusion of an exhaustive government study found out that we are 2 societies, 1 white, 1 black, separate but unequal. And as a result of that finding, some work was supposed to have taken place in this last 50 years so something like this wouldn't happen. We have asked for the manager that called the police to be terminated. We have asked that the police, now that we learned that when the store told them that the men should not be arrested, they said, this is no longer in your hands, it's in the police hands. So initially we were looking that the police were just called here, but then they began to take matters into their hands. They took these men and held them for 8 hours. They wanted them prosecuted, but they couldn't get Starbucks to press charges. So because they couldn't get cooperation from Starbucks, and because they couldn't get cooperation from the DA's office, they had to let the men go. They may have got let go, but we're not going to let this go. And so the NAACP has joined the other voices in Philadelphia expressing outrage over this kind of behavior, and the only reason that they got this kind of police response is because of the location and the zip code. And so we're tired of that kind of living in this city, and so we're drawing the line in the sand. And this is where it begins. And the president, the CEO may have come here, he may have apologized, but that's not enough. We want a pink slip for the person that called the police. And we want to see the police that did not exercise good judgment strongly reprimanded. We do believe that had they not been called, they wouldn't have been here. So that's a word from the NAACP. We stand with our councilmen here. We stand with city council that are willing to stand out here to speak out on this issue. God bless you and keep you. Thank you.
So what I'm going to do at this particular point in time, so they're being supportive, so we won't be competing with one another, I want to open it up for questions. Will they be releasing the 911 tape? That I don't know. You will probably have to ask the Philadelphia Police Department. There's an internal investigation going on right now.
Councilman, what's your message to the police commissioner? Everyone seems to be disappointed in their actions. What's the message?
You know, I talked to the commissioner early on today, and obviously I would not like to see a situation where those 2 officers, actually 6 officers, would make the situation escalate to the next level. And so we're going to continue having a dialogue to try to figure out as we move forward. Because at the end of the day, the cops only came because the young lady who works at Starbucks overreacted and called them on the scene. So we're going to continue to work in partnership with one another to try to figure out in the near future how we can make sure that this doesn't escalate and get to the next level.
What do you think they should have done when they arrived? What would you have liked to see?
I mean, I don't want to second guess how they actually operate in terms of doing their job, but hopefully it would have been a certain level of a dialogue, right? Where, hold on. So like I was saying, I would like to have seen a dialogue where the two young men would have left without being in handcuffs. That's how I would like to have seen it.
Let's talk about Starbucks and what Starbucks going to do, but this is a national problem.
Yes.
What is the police department talking about doing as far as changing this? They treat us like this all the time. These particular brothers that look like this.
Yes. Well, I can't actually answer that question. You probably have to ask the Philadelphia Police Department.
They won't talk to me.
Well, we can follow up and have that same conversation. All right. Yes. Well, to be quite frank with you, time out. To be quite frank with you, I'm out here denouncing Starbucks. So we're talking about the same thing. So that's my perspective, and I got a track record of addressing this issue. So with that being said, listen, this particular press conference is ended. I want to thank you very much. If you have questions you would like to ask Power, ask them the questions. Thank you very much. I'm going to thank my colleagues for joining me as well.